Okay. Okay. I will talk a little bit about the university, Unicinos, and Alliance for Innovation. Unicinos, we are part of a net, Jesuit universities. Here, where it's painted in blue, we have Jesuit universities. Here are the logos of this university, and we have a partnership with all of them. Of course, we have some like Sogang University, Deusto University, ESAD, and Georgetown University. We are closed, more close. But we have a lot of partnership with these universities. Unicinos is, as we talked this morning, it's almost 50 years. It was founded in 1969. And this is our campus in São Leopoldo. It's very different from here. Here is the administrative, here is the library. These are where the classes happen. Here we have the park, the technological park. This one is the company we will visit in 2 days. It's HT Micron. And we will visit this company too, is SAP from Germany. This is from Korea. And this is our campus here, where we are. The theater here, you went there now, yeah? Here we have had lunch, and the park here, and here is where we are now. About the big numbers of our university. We used to have 30,000 students. Nowadays we have around 20,000 in undergraduation, and maybe 2,000 in graduate programs, and a little bit less than 3,000 in MBA and some specialization and these things. We have 2,000 employees, more than 90 undergraduate programs, 26 master programs, and 19 PhD programs. We have more than 300 projects running now, and that's it here. No, we are organized. We used to say that we are organized in a science, technology, and innovation system. Science happens here in academia. The technological part on our institutes, and the innovation, it happens on the companies. Yeah. So we have this academic part, 19 PhD, 26 masters, more than 1,020 research groups, and 300 projects with the professors, and 100 projects. It's these are biggest projects, bigger projects. And this 100, the university takes care of this, not the professor. It's I will show in some minutes. We are organized in 6 schools: humanities, education, history, philosophy, social science, health, creative school, law, business school, where we are, accounting, business administration, business management, and economics. And the Polytechnical School is the biggest, where are this architecture, biology, and engineering, and IT. You can ask, you can interrupt if you want. Most of these big projects are in this presentation here. We have, from this 100 that I told, 75 are funding. The total is $25 million. 53% are the funding came from public money, from the government, and 47% private funding. I think 6-7 years ago, it was 95% here and 5% here. It was very different. What happened here? Guess what? The government don't have money. That's the point. Yeah, we don't have funding for innovation. Yeah, please. What's that? Ah, okay. This is private funding, but this is from, how we say, incentivo fiscal. Alguém me ajuda? I don't know, it makes sense. Yeah, it's from the government. Yeah, the government don't take the taxes from the company, and the company take this money and put in the university. We can say it's the same. It's from the government here. Well, private funding, it's maybe really private, maybe it's 10-15%. That's these are two lines of incentive. Nice question. These are some partners of our university. It's a bank, IT, food, SAP, Microsoft, Siemens. There is no one from Norway, no. What? Yes. It's Spanish, yeah. It's a bank from Spain, north of Spain. Oh, yeah. Maybe. Okay. This was the part of academic. The technology happens at, we have 5 technological institutes and other smaller labs at the university. And these 4 institutes, we will visit this one, food and nutraceutical for health and nutrition. We will visit this. If we have time, We will visit the this one, semiconductors. It's on the campus in São Leopoldo. This one, it's the maybe this institute is the one that have more interaction with companies because it works with construction, civil construction. This one works with micropaleontology, geology, micropaleontology. The biggest client here is Petrobras and Statoil. It's in Norway, and the British British Petroleum, yeah, are the biggest clients here.
So the one that is similar to the food, the nutrition, is called Nufima. The one that we have in Stavanger, I think I love it. It's similar to the one that the Bosch.
Yeah.
Nutrition and food, and in Norway it's fish and aquaculture.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, nutrition, civil construction, micropaleontology, and this one works with safety systems, basically in electronic IT equipments, electronic equipments. And this one is the newest. It works with packaging and testing semiconductors. If you have time, we will visit this one too. Well, this institutes, we built these 5 institutes with federal money. And these institutes, they don't have space to research, basic research. We do only applied research. And we sell services for companies. These 5 institutes, they pay their bills with private money. It's clear? And innovation, we have this technological park. The park is this, where it's yellow is the park. It's around the university. The university is here in São Leopoldo. It's not so far from the airport, 20 minutes, 30 kilometers from the airport. It starts in 1998, very small, and they get recognized like best park in 2010 and 2014. And nowadays we have some big buildings you can see on Wednesday. What's different here? This park is not only from the government. The governance is not only made by the university. The governance is made by the university, the municipality, and the firms association from the municipality, São Leopoldo. The director, the CEO of this park is an employee from the university. But this, the government and the companies, they have some influence on this governance. have there, today we have 100 companies there, and most of them in IT, automation, semiconductors, health technologies for health, social environment technologies, and communication and digital convergence. And today we have there more than 5,000 jobs. 5,000 employees work in this area. We have companies from all these countries. And here some images. We will visit this place. It's the Portal Innovation. It's a hub for innovation. I work in this building here. This is the incubator. This and this is the incubator. And here, it's this building is. I think this year it will start. It's pretty new. It's not finished nowadays. Okay, this some big numbers of university. Some questions. Okay, let's see the light. We will ask for Leonardo to help here. Yeah, thank you. Leonardo to help here. Well, the Alliance for Innovation. It's the three universities. Each university have a scientific park, and the aim of this alliance is high impact and structuring actions for advancing the innovation and develop ecosystem, innovation ecosystem in Porto Alegre. It's this story started maybe 1 year ago when the municipality of Porto Alegre asked for a group of citizens, and he asked for a group to think about innovation in the city. We can call it a council, maybe. And this group did some meetings and talk about this. And I don't know the right month, maybe December last year. It starts the Aliança. November, yeah. They suggest that the three these three universities, PUC, UFSC, and Unicinos, could make part of this council. And the big problem here is they are competitors. This is a private university, this is a private university, this is a federal university. They are competitors, but they want to develop this area. Okay. April this year, yeah, we signed it. Last year, yeah, I think it starts maybe in March last year, And in November, we put these three universities together and start to plan what can we do. Yeah. This university was founded in 1948, 25,000 students. This federal in 34, 43,000 students. Unicino 68, 30 students. Each one have a technological park. But how can we work together? It's a big problem because each one has his own problems, his own need secrets. Look at here. They have 159 patents, and we have 18. What happened here? They have the research at PUC starts in I think in the same age here. And we start research maybe 20 years ago. Yeah, research. It's different. And each one have his own rector. We have our students, our professors, and put it together. It's not easy. And this is the problem we have today. We signed, we have here, when they signed, maybe it's 9 April, they signed, the rectors are here, the agreement. Yeah, the formal agreement. And when they signed this, we really don't know what will happen. We know that we have to do something to have a better place here. This is the point, yeah. And this group have, let me see here, have a consultant, how we say? Consultor? Consultants. Consultant. Yeah, they may make a consultancy. Yeah, consultancy. This is Joseph Piquet. He's from Barcelona. He works on this Barcelona area. He works at Medellin in Medellin mesmo? Colombia. And Florianópolis is next state, the state near Rio Grande do Sul. And Recife, ele trabalhou também ou não? Recife, não. Não. Yeah. Yeah. And he has a method to do this. YASP is Science Park, yeah.
He's the president of these associations, and the science parks in the whole world, several of the parks are members of the association. For example, the three parks that we saw, it was on the slide, they are members of the association.
Yeah.
So he has methods to develop this network.
Yeah, this is what we do today. Yeah. Oh, here. Here. Well, this is the logo of our alliance, the Federal University, the Catholic University, and Unicinos. This is, each one of these universities have blue in his logo. Yeah, this is the blue from URGS, this is the blue from PUC, this is the blue from Unicinos. Yeah, It's pretty new. I think it's quanto tempo nós temos essa? When they do this? 2 weeks, yeah, maybe. It's pretty new. Yeah. And you asked this morning this one. What will happen with this alliance? We want to transform the city. We want to see a reference in innovation, knowledge, in the entrepreneurship, not only in Brazil, but here is in Brazil, yeah. We want to turn this our city in a hub for new technologies, basic venture, startups. We want to attract investments. We want to retain our talents. I was talking on lunch today. Our talents are leaving our country. I have 2 daughters, one in the United States, one in Barcelona. They left the country, the city, and his father. Yeah, and we have to retain these talents. This is the big point. To do this, we have some projects, key projects. We want to have a space here in Porto Alegre that we can work together, the 3 universities. We have an area in Porto Alegre that was in the 70s, 80s, an industrial area. But today it's we have all the companies that were there, they left or they broke. And that's an area that is degraded. It is the word, yeah? In this area, we did a project to renew this area, maybe, I think 4 years ago, maybe 3. We call it 4th district, Quarto Distrito in Portuguese. We did a project. We intend to put this project in March with this alliance. But the alliance don't have money, we don't have resources, we don't have the power of the government, we don't have the people. We have to, I think what is the big point, that the society of the city, of the state, see that 3 universities can work together. They are competitors, and we can trust on these 3 universities. People don't trust in government here. I think no one. We are working in the contract. I don't know, in the agreement in this with this 3 university, how we can get money, receive money, and put this money in the city, in projects. We are working in this. I think it's not done today, yeah? It's in March. Well, but this is a big project to do a economic reconversion and develop this area. And the Pact of Innovation is another project. Leonardo told us this morning. This is the Pact. What is this? We have a list of 75 organizations in that are here in Porto Alegre that represent startups, represent big companies, represent the government, the municipality, represent the area of health area, represent the universities, represent all the society, 75. And how can we put 75 persons in a table and discuss the future of a city? It's pretty hard. Yeah. But this is part of the Piquet's method, because this our consultant. Yeah. Well, this is one project of the alliance. We have the project. We did the project 3 years ago. How we contract this consultant. Yeah, this how we contract. We organize the community, and we how we say there are here we have some big companies. One big company is a communication company that have TV, radio, the communication. It's very important. And this, the owner of the CEO of this company is together with us to look for finance this. And we organize something like, how we say, we invite some companies to put money here. And I think four companies, they invest here 180,000 reais. I don't know, it's in dollars or NOK. 260, yeah. Each NOK, each company. And with this money, the companies said something to us. It's not a secret, but it's hard to say this. We don't want to give this money for the municipality. We don't want to go to. We think that if we take this money and put to the government to do something, maybe it will be a problem there. Yeah. This is nowadays the pact is the finance. The funding of the pact is until now is doing by 4 companies. Yeah, these 4 companies, but it's only one action on the pact. It's only one activity. What? Yeah, it's only one step. It's the first step. We have to work on this. Yeah. It's not for hiring, but to maintain we have a lot of we have to pay the piquet. We have to Yeah, have to travel here. Yeah.
And because one of the companies, they helped with a column in the newspaper weekly. So we are doing this by 2 months,
Yeah.
and we are putting always a news about the Pact for Innovation or the alliance. The Pact doesn't exist
Yeah.
yet formally, but about the alliance in the newspaper weekly on 2 months from now, and they will give this because they are for local companies that have but they are international. They are big ones, so they are influenced. They ask people for start doing this. Not only money, but they give credibility to these projects, and they are not doing this credibility for the government. They are doing for the
University.
the difference and the
Yeah, but then,
of this.
but the effect will be
Sure, and the government.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I think this is something interesting.
Yeah.
The credibility is being given to the university to be the leaders.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this may be a sign that the public organization, the public administration is losing credibility and firms are not trusting the public administration to manage the
Yeah.
funding. So this is something interesting from the region. That is different from other places. Because just to make a comparison, we have in Finland, maybe you have seen, they have a strategy called Six Cities Strategy, which is it's also building an ecosystem for entrepreneurship and innovation. And they put together, instead of university, they put together 6 biggest cities in Finland. Each city has a science park, each city has a university involved in the strategy. But they are the city municipalities, they are involved in the projects and they are taking the lead. And here the university
Yeah.
because the firms are not trusting the public administration to do this kind of thing.
And the society as a whole, for society as a whole, is better because universities has 50, 60, 70 years, and government each 4 years change the mayor. So yes, and this the government, the city hall, thinks it was a good idea that university leads this project because in Brazil the government has not credibility anymore for society. So if anyone wants to put money there, they are just stakeholders from these projects.
Just the Russian scandals make population lose also trust in government and because everybody change the city mayor and then the project is finished and you have to change the whole administration and the project is finished. So at least now you have something supposedly that you will have something like more stable long term.
In fact, the project stops, but don't finish. Yeah. 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 Interrupt. That's the point. Yeah. Yeah. That's why we think it's interesting to study this, to research about this. It's something different. We don't read this in the papers.
Take a look at another thing interesting. In the alliance, there is just these 3 universities, but in fact, we have another university because Porto Alegre has a lot of them.
For
The president of the
yeah, we have how we say forum of the yeah, it's not super, yeah, something like this. I'm the president of this forum. We have 44 institutions of higher education, higher education. 44.
44?
Yeah, about this. On our forum, we have 20, 26, 27 higher education organizations.
So in the Pact for Innovation, these 40 institutions of higher education will be invited. Not for the Alliance. For the
Yeah.
Alliance, just the 3 universities.
Uh,
Yeah. This alliance is just the brain of this thing.
this 44 high education institutions, they have a president, me, and I will be here. One of these 75 persons on the pact. This is the point.
Yeah, I think that sometimes it's not the one up of the other.
Yeah.
The alliance here, because it depends on what side you look. I think it's 2 projects that go in parallel. And for the start of the Pact for Innovation, the alliance is up. But from who is inside of the project, they don't need to, they are not a high level. They are an institution that is starting this project. But the Pact for Innovation will be started by these 3 universities plus the City Hall. But after that, these 75 institutions will follow and will lead the project. This
Yeah.
is just for the start, this 3.
It-
After that, they will not lead anymore. It will be a project from the city, for the city.
Yeah. Like this project, it starts three or 4 years ago, and we take this and put here under this alliance. We put this together with the pact, but in fact, it starts maybe 10 years ago. We did the project 4 years ago. And nowadays, maybe these people will put this project, finish this project, really finish this project. Yeah, it's not easy to understand this.
Just for summary, correct me if I'm wrong. Just for my understanding, these 3 universities,
Mhm.
we have this, the alliance.
Alliance.
That you have this some methods for innovation that you wanted to implement.
Yeah.
That this methods comes from the consultant.
Yeah.
Me.
Yeah.
But then, how about for the implementation? Is it something like that? This you have to implement this because this already happened in some other. It's not so. Or just
Yeah.
or from the start, this consultant asked one of the problems is in the region.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
consultant, as far as I understand, the consultant not going to just come here and say, these are the
Yeah,
things,
no.
this, it's gonna work.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that. It's
No.
not something ready-made. Something that's gonna be built from bottom up within the institution.
You see here.
It's under construction, but the consultant is being paid and contracted by the Pact for Innovation. So that the universities will not pay for the consultants. The companies that is involved in the Pact for Innovation will pay this. Because after here, the consultant will enter in the project Pact for Innovation. The alliance is just the 3 universities.
Alliance is just
Yeah.
For innovation. Let's do some projects, so the three figures start together for innovation. They're not competitors in this ecosystem.
Yeah.
So the alliance is just strategic agreement. It doesn't do anything, right? So far, Daniel was presenting those 4 projects that they are putting under the flag of alliance. But since this alliance was formalized, the only project so far is the pact. Did I get it
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And who will solve these problems, the city problem? This 75 people, institutions to make part of this pact, they have to say, I will do this. I will do this. I will do that. It's not I'm will participate and I'm here. They have to have a commitment with something. Okay, this yeah, the people are working with to understand the problems, the city problem. They are 5 meetings. How to say you are involved in this? This is yeah. It's this
We're
one.
doing some like focal groups, we call it workshops, that we call specialists in each one in one dimension to understand the ecosystem of innovation for collective. So we did the first workshop in education. So we call specialists, 44 specialists in education to talk a little more about what's necessary, what's happening, what is the indicators, how can we understand this behavior. So after we did another workshop on finance, we take companies that put money in startups and agencies, governments, agencies that put money for entrepreneurship and something like that. So we take the dimension of finance, how it is in this ecosystem. From funding, funding. Yeah. And after we did 1 week from the infrastructure of the city, other from legal, the laws to foster entrepreneurship and innovation. And the last one is the quality of life, like interactions and how can we make a city better to live, like a cultural, other things like that, that bring entrepreneurs. So with this 5 dimension, we want to take a better view of the ecosystem of innovation from Portugal.
There were more than 200 people involved in this.
Yeah.
In this workshop.
Education, funding, infrastructure, legal, quality of life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Education, funding, infrastructure, the legal, and quality of life.
Yeah.
University makes this alliance and Pact and 75 institutions are funding so far. And
No. 75 institutions, they don't funding. No. Nowadays, only 4 companies are funding the first step. This
everybody is related, only these 4 companies are related.
no,
All of them are related.
all of them are related.
75 companies are participating in our pact.
Yeah, not only.
There will be the governance of the pact after. But to start it, we need the consultants.
Yeah.
And then the administrative costs of the beginning. So these 4 companies is funding this
effective is this going on? How effective is this activity? How effective?
I think here, this is a good vision. We invite to launch this alliance 150 people around this. We invite. And here are the three rectors and Piquet. Era Piquet esse? Não? And the mayor. Yeah, okay. And appear 800 people here. We invite 100. Everyone on the city, everyone not, but a lot of people were curious. What is this? What will happen here? And you are here. Tell about this moment. You are expecting 150 people and 200. No, we invite. We invite. 200.
Something like that.
But we expect 150.
Yeah.
Maybe less.
Yes.
What happened? What happened?
What happened at 800 now? Almost 800 here.
Yeah. Eighth floor.
We will stream live.
Yeah.
The fireman, responsible for the auditorium, no more than 474 that told us. And so we need to take another room quickly. And
Yeah.
this, of course, is pretty.
I think it's this answer your question or not.
Yeah. But because it's like, I have some more details.
Okay.
The 5 things you have mentioned, fund, education, and how do you measure? For example, after 10 years, you're going to measure it whether we are how much we are successful or not. What are the indicators that based on this you can say? For example, infrastructure is developed by, we have reduced unemployment right after this one. Like this, what kind of indicators?
Yeah. You have to answer.
Take this model of the dimension of the literature from Heisenberg, a model from Boston College. And we adapted this model from our context. So we started with a rising indicator that can be measured in each dimension based on the literature also.
So we can follow them.
Yeah. Something like 5 to 10 to each dimension. So it is a first step. When Joseph came from this event, we have a meeting with him and present that, and he also put some information for us, advices. And after this, we started the second step with the and we started to arise something new with special
Can you say again the name of the model?
Sorry?
Can you say the name of the model you are following?
It's from Babson College.
Babson.
College in the US. I think this is very interesting. Maybe we could share the indicators.
Sure.
But I think it's even more interesting if you don't know the indicators when you go for the interviews. Because remember that one
Yeah.
of the questions is what do you expect the result long term from this organization, this network, from the city, all these activities. So you will probably find out that you will give different answers. Well, I hope more jobs, we have not unemployment. Well, we hope more patents, we hope more technological innovation. So institutions will give different answers, which is very, very interesting. And then after we can compare to the indicators that we have and see what they are expecting or what we are going to measure.
Yeah,
You think we should somehow.
and also we can move the preference. There are 10 indicators. So can you put it into based on your hierarchy, which one you think the most important? Then we can have like three survey for 10 people, like qualitative method, like key method. If we can use this one, then we can easily identify which is the most preferable indicator for them. And you can consider like this. Because at the end of the day, like qualitative as long as many qualitative as we take, doesn't matter because we have to quantify and quantitative.
Actually, this one is a good idea, but we can do this after you visit. We can send an email for the all 75 actually, and do that. That would be interesting. Good idea.
Ok, o cônsul chegou. Boa tarde. Tudo bem? Tudo ótimo. Tenha bondade.
Tudo bem? Eu sou a Elisa. Tudo bem? Obrigada por aceitar o nosso convite. So these are my students in Norway.
I'll just sit down.
Não, é que eu estou à distância aqui. Estamos finalizando.
Porque a gente pode continuar também depois, né? We can do more questions and talk more about this later when we have the time scheduled for it actually on our program. And then now we are lucky to get a speech and to have an honorary consul from Norway here for connecting. So Norway is a good partner of Brazil, as I already told you. And I think it's nice to hear about the relations of two countries and a little bit of you also how you became an honorary consul or what are the roles and something like this for us. Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Tá.
Stefan, do you want to stand up or sit or what do you prefer? Have something to present?
No, just
This conversation?
speech.
Yeah.
Ok.
But we are in streaming.
Yeah.
It would be nice if you
Yeah.
Nós estamos filmando para depois passar para os outros alunos lá no Noruega. Mas ele pega aqui também.
Sim,
Aquela
então,
câmera
nós
pega.
podemos fazer aqui até
uma
um círculo. Aqui.
A
É.
gente fica com a
Ficamos assim, fazemos um círculo mais aqui. O microfone é só para gravação.
Não, ele não faz som nenhum.
Às vezes a gente esquece.
Que não faz som,
Não, acabou de tomar uma.
é a primeira vez que vem aqui. Também só vem por algum motivo, né? So these chairs were designed by Professor Bonicius. He designed the chairs and the mobility and everything.
So at least have a practical use.
Yeah. And it's actually very good because this is not small. Usually when you have these tables with the chair, they are small, but this is good size. Eu sou de São Leopoldo, dava aula na Unicinos, e aí me mudei para Extravanga.
Eu estudei no ensino.
O que que você vai
50 anos atrás.
O que que você vai
Administração. 68 lá em São Paulo.
Primeira turma, então.
Eu acho que primeiro ou segundo.
O meu pai dava aula lá para as primeiras turmas, mas dá aula de ética, metodologia,
Ah, eu ia falar.
um campus antigo ainda, então. Maravilha, bom.
Sim, me mandasse um número errado. Aí eu falei com metade do número.
Ai, desculpa. Tá ok, tá ótimo. É assim mesmo.
Apparently, I have to speak through the mic so everybody understands. My name is Frank Woodhead. I'm actually of English origin, but born in Brazil. And I went to the school in the Argentine, actually. So all my basic schooling was done in an English boarding school in Buenos Aires. And that's where my English comes from. Don't think that as a Brazilian, I would speak that well the English. And then when I came back, I had actually two alternatives. Either I carried on going to Cambridge in England to carry on the studies because I did the Cambridge exams, or I stayed in Brazil. This is where my family lived, and so I decided to stay in Brazil. But it cost me 2 years of adapting from the English education to the Brazilian education. And then I was just mentioning, I went to Unicinos University in business administration. If it wasn't the first, it was the second year that actually was working the Unicinos out in São Leopoldo. So anyway, how did I become a consul? In Norway, 70% of the Norwegian Foreign Service is based on honorary consuls. For the simple reason that there's not enough people to serve all the different countries or cities in the world. So in Brazil, with the exception of Rio de Janeiro, which has a career consul, and the embassy obviously in Brasilia, all the rest of us, and I think we're about 7 or 8, are honorary consuls. How you get chosen? Very easily, through the shipping division of Norway. The shipping owners association in Norway indicates the people that they would like to see representing Norway as a consul. Because before, a big part of our job was to fill in and document shipping documents, especially vis-a-vis the crew members, and there were books and books. I mean, I still have seals, seals used back in the year 1200 or 1300. It was the same seal. And that, of course, has vanished, thank God. So I work, obviously, as being an honorary consul, you don't get anything. So you just represent. But I work in the transport area and logistics area, shipping, trucking, container terminals, etc. So that's how I got indicated to be consul. But I was too young at the time to be consul. So they asked my father to be consul for 2 years until I got the minimum age, and then I took this. Yeah. Even though we have a barging company here which transports agricultural products from the hinterland to the port of Rio Grande, which is the main, or one of the main ports in Brazil. Do you have a map that you do? Yeah, because no, Rio Grande do Sul. I'll just show you, because there were a lot of Norwegian shipping companies coming to Rio Grande do Sul, Brazil in general, and you still have some. The Odfjell Group from Bergen, they have terminals and chemical vessels. You had Ivaran Rederi from Oslo that came as a general cargo container service from here to the East Coast, United States. Then they opened up over to Europe. And then gradually things changed because of the famous flag convenience. It was too expensive to operate under Norwegian flag. And then, these shipping companies that started up opening offices in all sorts of places, Luxembourg being one of them. They have different rules and different regulations, and everything is about competition, really. So the shipping has declined. But back in 1970 or 69 or 70, the first huge, and when I say huge because it involved a lot of dollars at the time, Norwegian investment in Brazil was a cellulose factory that was built in Guaíba, and it was called Borregaard. Excuse my pronunciation, but it's Borregaard, yeah. They were just outside Oslo. They were a big cellulose company, produced paper. And it smells very bad. And that's one of the reasons that they eventually sold it. It was a bit of a political disaster, because and why did they invest in Brazil? One very simple reason. A tree takes 30 years to grow in Norway. It takes 7 years to grow in Brazil. And you have the short fiber and the long fiber. It's a technical issue, but everybody uses today the short fiber, which is based on eucalyptus, which is what you can plant here, and it grows like anything. So they obviously found this out, that you could grow, and they invested in this factory. At the time, I think it was $400 or $500 million. But since it was the first big Norwegian investment outside Norway, they actually had all sorts of insurance for political risks, for inflation risks, for all sorts of things. And they had to get a special authorization from the Norwegian parliament to do this. Unfortunately, they disregarded, or they were unhappy. They were unlucky, because the factory was placed on the opposite side of the river. There's a big river here called the Guaíba. You have Porto Alegre on one side, and you have Guaíba on the other side. Now, the factory was exactly opposite the house of the owner of the biggest newspaper in Rio Grande do Sul. At that time, it was the Correio do Povo. And when the plant started, they hadn't put in, and there wasn't all those filters that you could have, to take the smell away, because the smell, if you live by, well, not today, but at those times, if you lived by a cellulose plant, it was terrible. It smelt of bad eggs. It's really, when the wind was sort of, prevailing over the city. With the wind, it comes over, right? So then there were about 50 Norwegian families that came to live here, and very Norwegian style. They built a villa for them, all the houses more or less the same. And because there was no technology either for building the factory of that complexity, and there was no knowledge in the agricultural field to grow these trees, because you think the trees are just grown like that. This is a highly professional, and the trees are one exactly the same to the other. There are certain processes that they withdraw the basic seed, let's say, and then they replicate the same seed so they can get exactly the same tree again. And it takes 7 years for the first cut, and then every 3 years they cut the rest, and then eventually you have to start the whole thing again. But it's a harvest. It's a crop. It's like soybean, wheat, except it's much bigger and it's a bit more complex. That the Norwegians, from that point of view, were extremely innovative, because they were the first ones to bring this technology here, but they couldn't do it in Norway because of the long time it took to grow the trees. And since then, Brazil has become the largest cellulose producer in the world, actually, the short fiber, which is based on eucalyptus. And now we have factories of all sorts of sizes, from Vitória, Bahia, and all other places. And the fact that there were 50 Norwegian families coming here, they opened up the consulate because of the documents and necessities. I mean, it's not easy to come from Oslo or Norway and to live in Rio Grande do Sul, which is a tropical country, but different language. The whole thing is completely different. Schooling, everything was very difficult. Beauregard was sold about 7 years after it was built to a local group, and since then it was sold many times, actually, and now it belongs to a Chilean group, and they've expanded this factory to producing something like 1.8 million tons a year of cellulose. So that's the reason why there's a consul here in Porto Alegre. Now, until 10, 15 years ago, Norwegians knew Brazil for 3 reasons. Carnival, for the Amazon, and for the coffee. Essentially, those were if you said Brazil, they'll always talk about Carnival, they talk about the coffee, or they talk about the Amazon, because the Amazon is a big issue as far as the environmental issue. On the other hand, Brazilians thought that Norwegians only produced bacalhau, which is the fish. Because, the codfish, because that's where it comes from. Not that the Norwegians eat it, and it's a story that begins with the Portuguese actually fishing up over in Norway and salting it so that because there was no refrigeration at the time. But Brazil is the biggest bacalhau consumer in the world. And there are places in Norway like Ålesund and other which live off exporting bacalhau to Brazil. Yeah, it's quite amazing. But then, of course, the oil. Brazil discovered this, what we call the pre-salt oil. And why? Because it's a pre-salt. Because we have a huge, and don't ask me how, but it's kilometers of salt underneath the earth crust. And this oil is below this salt crust. So you need a very, very high technology to drill that far down. Norway was the obvious partner for for Petrobras in this case, of the North Sea oil, because it's also a very deep, drilling issue. Of course, I can't forget saying that right at the beginning of the last century, the mustard fishing hooks, which is a monopoly in the world, I would say, they actually started. And if you go to the Amazon, and certain villages in the Amazon, fish hooks are known as mustard, which is a brand, and they made actually horse shoes or whatever you call it, at the beginning of the issue. So then Statoil came here, obviously. Essentially beginning selling know-how. Again, there's a cultural difference between Norway and Brazil. The sizes of countries are different. I mean, Brazil is about 22 times the size of Norway. When we fly from Porto Alegre to Manaus, it's with a stop in Brazil, it's a 5-hour flight, and you're still within Brazil. And you've flown through São Paulo, through Brasilia, and you finally reached the Amazon, which is an interesting place to see, but a terrible place to live, because the heat and the humidity is atrocious. And I've done that myself, so I can say as a practical issue. So Statoil came, which is now known as Equinor, because they changed the name, and they are the largest investors in Brazil. And actually, we heard from Statoil, we were in Norway in 2015, that they had decided to make Brazil their main petroleum site, let's say, after the North Sea site, because they know that the North Sea oil is coming to an end. I mean, the usage of petroleum is coming to an end someday in the future, but there's still, from the petrochemical, the use of petroleum as a gasoline is a very let's say, not a very sophisticated way of using a product which you use in the chemistry industry, in the pharmaceutical industry, and all sorts of things. You have Norske Hydro came down here. First, under that name, they bought up the largest fertilizer company in Brazil, and the headquarters are here, actually not very far from this university. So now it's called Yara Fertilizers. And they also bought Bugia and other fertilizer companies, but the headquarters is just maybe a kilometer away from here. There's Arca Solutions, which is the shipping design, I would say, more than anything else nowadays. Hydro bought the aluminium division of Vale do Rio Doce, which is our biggest mining enterprise here. They've run into environmental problems up in Belém, which is where their main mining industry happens. It's actually closed now until they have to fix a couple of things. At this moment, yes, because it was a leakage in their I don't know what you call it, in their deposits of bauxite, which is the raw material for aluminium. And then you have bioenergy, you have Odfjell, which I've mentioned. About 90 companies, Norwegian companies, either affiliated or their own, or through some sort of a tax uh, system, because they sometimes don't invest from Norway. They invest through a holding company in some sort of paradise, fiscal paradise, which, yeah, I mean, it's tax issues. Yeah? You escape from Norwegian taxes, which I understand are not that small. Yeah, and it's a question of competition. Yeah, Norway in the aluminium, they have to compete with the Australians, with people in Africa. So it's a competition worldwide. There was also, and this is more from a cultural issue. Just after the Second World War, Norwegian entrepreneur actually came out to Brazil. His name was Erling Lorentzen. And this guy has made quite a history for himself. First thing is that he married Princess Ragnhild, which has deceased in the meantime. And she is the king's sister. And they came down, lived in Brazil. They actually lived, they had Brazilian sons. And he was in the gas distribution business, also in the shipping business. And he actually was the co-founder of Aracruz, which was the largest cellulose company in Brazil. And they ran into trouble in the 2008-2009 financial debacle. Apparently, they invested on the wrong side of, and they made a huge loss, and they sold out. And today, obviously, Erling must be 90 odd years old. So I think he lives most of his time in Norway now. But his kids still run the company and the shipping aspects and other investments that they have from Rio de Janeiro. So there's a family link there. Yeah, and no, she lived there. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, they were born. They in Brazil, the shipping, for example, be under Brazilian, and very, very good for Erling, because he had the so-called princess, the small princess, the youngest daughter of was actually born in Brazil. So he put the company under her name. So she was, I think, 3 or 4 years old, and she was the owner of a shipping company. Yeah. So, that's. Just to see if I forgot anything. No. So this is a sort of a resume of the resume in 5 or 10 minutes, just to give you an idea of what the Norwegians have done in Brazil, which has been substantial. And there, apart from all the mess that has going on with the corruption scandals of Petrobras and other scandals, that was one of the main reasons Arca never came to Brazil to produce anything. So they came to sell know-how. That they didn't have to bribe anybody. That is the essential part of it. Unfortunately, Petrobras got into all this trouble. I mean, the volumes of investments are huge. When I say huge, you're talking about $200 billion, an investment program for 3 years for this deep oil drilling. Obviously, all this has, I don't say it's stopped, but it's obviously calmed down substantially. And Statoil, or Equinor, I still use Statoil, but Equinor is actually the second producer of oil after Petrobras. It's still a small percentage, but it's already in the 6 or the 10% bracket. The numbers that we have are pretty old. You know, they're back from 2014, 2015, and they haven't been sort of come up. Nowadays, before we could actually produce passports here, because of the security issues after the New York bombing back in 2011, 9, 2001, yeah, 9,000, yeah. So everything now is done in Oslo, basically. However, with the tourist and especially the low-cost fares to Brazil, especially the northeastern. Porto Alegre is not a touristic place. I mean, you wouldn't come here to visit the city. But up in Natal, Recife, Salvador, which are the northeastern states or cities where you have beautiful beaches, I mean, you have planes coming in from Oslo in your summer, our winter. And with that, some of the tourist problems involved. My colleague, for example, in Natal, he spends part of his day, and he's a lawyer, trying to get Norwegians out of prison, either because they've drunk too much or they drug traffic. You know, and the Brazilian system for the drug is very stiff. So we have, I think the last count that I had, it was about 20 Norwegians in Brazilian prisons, up in the northeast, but also in Rio, and because of this deal. And they'll be liable to stay there for 10 years before they. And I wouldn't like to be under a Norwegian citizen under a Brazilian prison system. You know, don't look forward for that because it's terrible. That is one part. The other part that actually I'm going to Brasilia on Monday, because since the Thailand tsunami, the Norwegian government was heavily criticized for being slow and being non-operative, because there were a lot of Norwegian tourists in Thailand. People that died, people lost all their documents. So they learned the lesson, and nowadays there's a world system. Yeah, that anybody, well, consuls, and we work together with Scandinavian countries. So it's Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and Finland, even though they're not part of it, but still. And we actually have to cater for the so-called natural disasters, or disasters that happen. We were trained for the first time in February 2006, I think, or 2005. 6 months later, there was a plane crash a plane that left Porto Alegre, and it didn't manage to land in São Paulo, Congonhas Airport. Congonhas Airport is one of the most difficult airports because it's in the middle of the city, literally in the middle. It's closest experience you will ever have other than landing on an aircraft carrier, because it's a very, very short runway. And this plane just didn't manage to stop, and everybody died. And because Yada's headquarters were here, obviously everybody went into panic because of the board of the directors or anybody that could be traveling Norwegians. It was useful because that shows you that the theory behind the training and the practical experience are two completely different issues. The first thing, obviously, in a plane crash, airlines will never give you the names or even the nationalities of those people that were on board before they advise the parents themselves. So no Norwegian government authority can have access to that before the family has. But anyway, all this shows, that it can be done. It should be done. I mean, Norwegians are traveling a lot abroad, but obviously more to Europe. But as I said, if you look at the map there up in Fortaleza, you're not that close, not that far away from Europe anyway. Between Fortaleza and Lisbon in Portugal, it's a 6-hour flight. So people have come this way, especially to the Northeast. And that's why I said my colleague up in Natal, he has a difficult time because of, and again, I mean, if you're on holidays, you tend to drink too much. Yeah, but so they run into trouble every now and then. Yeah. Yeah. The airport? Sao Paulo. Sao Paulo is our industrial city. Oh, Congonhas. You go to the international one. Yeah. 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 Sao Paulo actually has 3 airports, right? So you have the small internal. Everybody wants to use that because it's quicker to get to the center of town. Businessmen use that because if you go without a big suitcase, it's easier to get to the place. But again, this is what happened. Obviously, after the accident, then everything changed. New rules, new regulations. But unfortunately, it has to take a disaster sometimes for people to really do their job properly, which they should have done in the beginning. So Sao Paulo is that you have Campinas, which is just there northwest or northeast of Sao Paulo, and you have Guarulhos, which is the big international airport, and that's where planes would not arrive in Europe if they had to take off from Congonhas, because they just couldn't take enough fuel. It's a different kettle of fish actually. Guarulhos, you can see there. That's where you will be flying from. If you're going to Paris, because there are no direct flights to Oslo. Amsterdam. Okay, yeah. It's London, Paris, or Amsterdam. Those are, and actually that's where the limit goes as far as normal airplanes fly, because it's a 12-hour flight. So, and then you have, winds coming down. So actually it's the other way around. You had winds coming against you when you come down here. Sometimes the flights have to land in Recife because they run out of fuel. Extremely I mean, when I'm talking winds, I'm talking about 200 or 300 kilometer winds. You know, it's really windy up in, especially in the equator area. Very bumpy as well, very bad weather there. So you might have experienced that, or you will most probably experience that. When you cross the equator, it's a problem. On the way down? That's... Yeah. Yeah, here traveling in summer, when there's the possibility of thunderstorms, I take a golden rule. I will not travel after 4 o'clock in the afternoon until 10 o'clock at night, because you risk getting very bumpy flights. You risk losing a flight, or the flight is canceled. A good rule here is not to fly, you know, in December to March. Don't fly between 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because you run into a thunderstorm, whether it's in Porto Alegre, São Paulo, Rio, Brasilia, you name it. And it can be extremely nasty. Yeah. So, pardon? No, well, you might have an occasional one, but I mean, yeah, really, a plane is fantastic from a structural point of view. You know, it's very difficult to bring these things down. And one pilot once told me, Frank, don't forget, we are humans as well. We don't want to die, you know. So they'll go, they'll go around thunderstorms. They're very localized. It's not a wider. Sometimes it's 100 kilometers, so they just deviate. You know. But you'll most probably feel the consequences of it. So I've spoken a lot. I don't know whether I've told everything you wanted to hear, but I think accept some questions. I mean, there most probably all sorts of very difficult for me to, you know, sitting at an office, you know, what do they know? What do they want to know? You know, so. Yeah. Sure, Stavanger is actually our Rio de Janeiro, or actually, but it's Campos, which is the advanced services to the oil rigs, and you have a lot of supply vessels operated by Norwegians that came from there, Norwegian oil rigs. You have.
Sometimes it's very interesting that the Norwegians came for the cellulose company. It's a different field, completely different field.
Completely different field, and they were the first that came here because of this growth issue. You know, anywhere in Scandinavia, a pine tree will take 20 to 30 years until it's ready to be cut down. You cannot compete with a tree that grows in 7. Point blank, you know. It's a competition issue. And now that's why you have investments in Thailand and other countries which are, you know, have a similar climate to us. Please go ahead. They asked me to become the consul because of my shipping links with Ivaran and other companies that we represented down here. And it's obviously, for a shipping company, it's a credibility issue. I mean, to be a consul, Norwegian consul, it means that you have passed every single checking system of your life, because they're extremely strict on that. I would say that most probably the Congo consul somewhere doesn't go through the same screening as we do. So it does give you credibility when you go abroad. Well, I looked before. No, but there. I could have used Venezuela, any other, yeah. And one thing that also shows me, and you have to leave a continent to find this. We are 37 consuls in Porto Alegre, most of them honorary, but they are the main ones: the Germans, Italians, Portuguese, Argentine, Uruguayans. They're career consuls. Now, only outside of the Middle East will you find Jews, Arabs sitting and talking to each other as absolutely nothing has happened. And we have it here, the consul, the Lebanon consul here. He gets on with everybody. I mean, it's a bit of a historic issue and a very local issue. You have to be there to be part of the problem. You leave there, and you're part of the solution. So it's one of those things, and it's fine. It's really great to discuss with my colleagues. We have a meeting a month, and we have usually for lunch, and we discuss how the Norwegian does it, how the Danish do it, how the Japanese do it. It's a cultural adding system. Very good, very good. It happened. Oh yes. Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because here, most of our borders are taken by Arabs. In the southern Shui with Uruguay, it's mostly Arabs. With Paraguay, it's mostly Arabs. But you have Jews, and you have everybody. You have Iranians, you have Iraqis, everybody that are fighting in their geographical area get on pretty well, if not very well, outside that conflict areas. It's a problem of the environment in which they are in. And it's interesting development. Here I think we are about 28 honorary consul. The others are career. The career consuls, which obviously differ, is that they come from their country, they stay 4 to 5 years maximum, and then they move on. The honorary consul has an advantage over the career consuls because we are from here. We know how to deal with the Brazilians all the time. I mean, because we are Brazilians. I am Brazilian. I'm going to Rio on Thursday, flying back on Sunday because I'm going to vote. And then Monday I go off to Brasilia again. So that is a very good door opener, especially when you have a problem that you have to solve. Sometimes, because you end up knowing everybody. There's a lot of interrelationship with the parliament, or our local parliament and governors and vice. It makes it a lot easier. Yeah. Yeah. No, It's not easy. Easy. And again, I mean, even in the consulate in Rio, because we were subordinate to the consulate in Rio. Now they've changed. Now we are subordinate to the embassy, because the consulate in Rio has a lot of work, a lot of red tape that has to go, bureaucracy, especially because all the big companies are there. I mean, Statoil, Yara is the only one that's here, but Hydro is in Rio. The main offices are in Rio, so there's a lot of interactions between the offices and the yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it works actually with the consulate in the same premises. Yeah, innovation. Feel free. I mean, it won't cost you anything. The most difficult. It wasn't the most difficult, but it was a very sensitive issue. Back in the 60s, we had a dictatorship, military. A lot of Brazilians, I'll classify them as left to extreme leftish, left the country. And they either went to Norway, Denmark, Sweden, a lot of them. And when the ban was lifted, they could all come back without going to prison and all that. Some of them had either married or they got a Norwegian or a Danish pregnant. And then there were lawsuits to have DNA. Under Brazilian law, you're not allowed to transport blood outside Brazil. Don't ask me why, but that's the law. So I had to accompany this guy to a laboratory to do the DNA testing here under a Norwegian judge's order. But this theoretically would have to go through the Ministry of Foreign Relationship. We managed to cut the red tape a little bit and do it directly. And I, quite frankly, don't even know if he was the father or not. But, it gets into trouble, us as people, because we don't like to meddle around with what they did or what they didn't do. But every country is different, and you have different opinions. You get this guy that is the Ecuador embassy and the WikiLeaks guy in London. He's being sued by the Swedish government for what do you call stupid? Rape. So. Yeah, no, WikiLeaks. He's a guy with a blonde hair. He's still there. No, he's a prisoner of the Ecuadorian embassy in London. You can't beat it. You get these. So it's different here. Here they're not that strict. But again, I mean, you have to, as a Norwegian, I have to respond to the Norwegian government, to the Norwegian standards, whether I like it or not. Other colleagues here report that their difficult issue is prisoner issues. I mean, a Norwegian young kid, guy 21, 22, lives off well in Norway, and then he's thrown into a Brazilian prison. Doesn't speak the language. He has to have a lawyer. He will not be able to leave. We have managed in certain cases, after at least a third of the time, for him to go back to Norway and finish off his prison period in Norway, which is a huge advantage. But that depends on the judge. He might say yes and he might say no. No, yeah, well, we tried to get him back to Norway. So at least he's closer to his parents and to his family, other than being here, because it's an expensive proposition. If the family has to come down and visit, then they don't visit. And then you, as the consul, have to visit him, at least twice a month. Oh yeah. So thank God I don't have any, but it's an issue. As I said, my colleague up in Natal, thank God he's a lawyer because he understands all this, and he gets on very well with the local police guys. And they say, this is a law. We have to just you try and easy off sometimes very hard conditions, because Brazilian prison in the northeast of the country is not an easy. All these gangsters, drug dealers, everybody is mixed up. So you end up coming out of prison worse, substantially worse, than when you went into prison.
Friendly prison that doesn't have any border, any wall or anything. In Ireland,
Prisoners have it better than the old people in locals. That's not.
Yeah.
They have TVs and
everything. Yeah.
And again, these are cultural issues. People really don't, tourists, especially the youngsters, and nothing against, obviously, the youngsters. You guys are more irresponsible vis-a-vis an adventure, whatever it is. We'll just take a plane and go to Brazil and we'll have a good time. Yeah, you can have a good time until you get into trouble. If you get into trouble and you're thrown into prison, then you have a huge problem. Elderly people don't tend to get into that situation. It's part of youth, so it's. I enjoyed the invitation that the Norwegian government does for us to go to Norway. We were there in 2015. It's every 7 years, 7 to 8 years. Last time we went up to the Lofton Islands. Yeah. Sorry, my pronunciation. And for us, it's extremely interesting to be over the Arctic Circle. The sun never sets. I had tremendous difficulty in sleeping. Just going to bed was a problem. Those airline things, yeah. And then, of course, you visit. I've seen the substantial part of Norway already through these visits. Stavanger is one of them that I have not been, but Bergen upwards, Ålesund or whatever, seen fish. They really treat you nice, and they show you around. They show, yeah. So at least we know what Norway is about, So otherwise, because you cannot be a Norwegian to be a Norwegian consul. because otherwise the whole issue is of responsibility. That is not absolutely true. If you have a Norwegian citizen that lives permanently, either in Porto Alegre, in Belém we had one, and he was then the Norwegian consul because obviously he speaks Norwegian. I don't. We have to speak one of the three main languages: Norwegian, English, or French, and then you're capable of being a consul.
Next time, please go to Stavanger.
Yes, I will. I'm getting to my retirement age, so let's see if I can manage that or not. Pardon?
You were saying that the consul before is your father?
Yes, but that was just as a memento. Before there was somebody else. Yeah, because then they found I was too young. I was 26 at the time, and you have to be 30 to be a consul. Yeah. Well, maybe. It depends a lot on the ambassador. He might even want to close down the consulate. That has, we can't put any influence on that because we have a consulate in the port of Rio Grande because of the shipping documents and either traveling as seamen. Well, there's still a lot of Norwegian seamen traveling a lot. So his main task is on the seaman side and taking care of that.
Mr. Frank, I have a book about Stavanger.
Oh.